1941, Die Glocke Project. The Temporal Mysteries. At the heart of the Second World War, an enigmatic shadow looms large, raising questions that defy rationality. Die Glocke, the bell. The year 1941 marked the beginning of a complex and controversial enigma that continues to capture the imagination and fuel theories as fascinating as they are disconcerting. According to the fragmentary accounts and documents available, Die Glocke was a secret project carried out by Nazi scientists in the final years of the war. The exact nature of this project remains a mystery, but it is often associated with experiments in time travel or flying saucer technology. Mention of Die Glocke is invariably accompanied by the mysterious Cerium-225, a material whose properties remain shrouded in a veil of uncertainty. Some reports suggest that Cerium-225 was essential to activate Die Glocke, paving the way for speculation about advanced, unexplored technologies. Theories abound, with some claiming that Die Glocke was a device capable of manipulating time, while others suggest that it was linked to experiments on flying saucers or revolutionary weapons. The most sensational rumors claim that Die Glocke caused time distortions, space-time shifts, and even spectacular climatic changes. These speculations plunge into the realm of the supernatural, fueling a complex mythology that far exceeds the limits of verifiable historical fact. However, beyond the enigmatic accounts, Die Glocke remains shrouded in doubt and controversy. Some scholars and historians regard the enigma as a post-war invention, emerging in the wake of the collective fascination with World War II mysteries. Others suggest that it may be a form of propaganda of the time, designed to sow confusion and fear among the Allies. This chapter delves deep into the intricacies of Die Glocke, exploring the sometimes contradictory accounts, enigmatic testimonies, and speculations that have emerged from this troubled time. Between reality and mystery, science and fiction, Die Glocke remains an obscure vestige of history, inviting reflection on the nature of truth and the legends woven in the dark hours of the past. The persistent echo of this enigma resonates through the decades, leaving behind unanswered questions and fascinating insights into what might or might not have been. 1942, The Fires of Vengeance. Lightning from the Sky. 1942 marked a milestone in the German war arsenal, with the introduction of the V-2 missile and the ambitious plans for the V-3. These revolutionary weapons, designed to change the course of the war, symbolize the apogee of technological advances in a context of global conflict. V-2, Reich Lightning. The V-2, the fruit of Wernher von Braun's genius, embodies an unprecedented technological advance. Powered by a liquid propellant engine, this ballistic missile became the first of its kind in the world. Its impressive range and exceptional speed, reaching Mach 4, made the V-2 an instrument of terror deployed against Allied cities, particularly London in 1944. The damage caused by V-2 attacks marked a turning point in the nature of conflict, establishing the terror of long-range ballistic missiles. V-3, the Terror Underground. Alongside the V-2, the Nazis were working on an even more sinister project, the V-3, also known as the Hochdruck pump, high-pressure pump, or the supergun. The V-3 aimed to create a long-range weapon capable of reaching London from occupied France. The V-3 concept was based on the idea of firing high-speed shells through an underground tunnel under the English Channel. This tunnel, called the Hochdruck pump, would have used explosive charges to propel the shells in an upward trajectory, then land them back on London. Although the V-3 was never fully operational, its existence underlines the extent of Nazi engineers' ambitions and creativity in designing innovative weapons. Consequences and legacy. The massive deployment of V-2s had devastating consequences in urban areas, inflicting extensive damage on London and provoking terror among the civilian population. The devastating consequences of these missiles foreshadowed the future impact of long-range weapons on modern warfare. However, the legacy of these missiles is not limited to destruction. The technology behind them has also paved the way for future developments in space and ballistic missiles. Wernher von Braun, the visionary engineer behind the V-2, moved to the USA after the war and became a key player in the American space program. His contribution to the development of the Redstone and Jupiter missiles, as well as his role in the Apollo program, show how the technological advances of war were diverted towards peaceful objectives. This chapter highlights the duality inherent in these technological advances. On the one hand, the horrors of modern warfare with the V-2 and V-3, and on the other, the transformation of these destructive technologies into vectors of progress and space exploration after the war. The fires of vengeance in 1942 left indelible scars, but also laid the foundations for the space adventure that would define the future of mankind. 1943, the Philadelphia Experiment. Between invisibility, time travel, and teleportation. The year 1943, already marked by the upheavals of the Second World War, becomes the scene of a mysterious event that transcends the limits of human understanding, the Philadelphia Experiment. At the heart of this enigma lies the USS Eldridge, a U.S. Navy ship, and a series of experiments known as Project Rainbow. The set, USS Eldridge. The initial aim of Project Rainbow, led by the U.S. Navy, was to render ships invisible to enemy radar using electromagnetic field generators. The USS Eldridge thus became the unwitting protagonist of this experiment, inadvertently propelling its name into history by becoming the center of a story as fascinating as it is controversial. Invisibility, myth or reality? According to eyewitness accounts, when the electromagnetic generators were activated, the USS Eldridge underwent an unexpected transformation. Observers report that the ship became invisible to the naked eye, literally disappearing from view. This alleged invisibility goes beyond the project's original objectives, laying the groundwork for more extraordinary speculations. Time travel and teleportation, dimensions of the unknown. The Philadelphia experience is not limited to invisibility. Some accounts, often more controversial, suggest that the ship was involved in time travel and teleportation phenomena. Witnesses claim that the USS Eldridge was propelled into the future, with crews claiming to have experienced events that took place decades after the experiment. Others claim that the ship was teleported considerable distances in the space of a few moments. The truth buried in mystery. The story of the Philadelphia experiment has given rise to many questions and controversies. Skeptics regard the story as an elaborate hoax, a tale embellished over time. Supporters of the theory, meanwhile, believe that crucial information is being deliberately concealed by the authorities. The absence of tangible evidence and official documents contributes to the enigma, making the Philadelphia experiment one of the most enduring mysteries of the 20th century. Legacy and questions. Beyond the debates over the veracity of the events of 1943, the Philadelphia experiment has left a significant cultural and scientific legacy. It has inspired works of science fiction, conspiracy theories, and fueled the collective imagination. This chapter explores not only the alleged events of the Philadelphia experiment, but also the lasting impact on popular culture and the human fascination with the unexplored frontiers of reality. The story of the USS Eldridge continues to haunt curious minds, reminding us that even in the midst of war, mankind never stops seeking to unravel the mysteries of the universe around us. 1943, the Montauk Project, 1943 to 1983. The enigmatic legacy of the Philadelphia experiment. The Montauk Project, an intriguing sequel to the Philadelphia experiment, plunges even deeper into mystery, stretching the limits of the human imagination over a period of 4 decades. From the heart of World War II experiments emerges a labyrinthine tale of mental manipulation, time travel, and paranormal activity in Montauk, near New York City. The roots of the project, heritage of the Philadelphia experiment. Project Montauk has its origins in the Philadelphia experiment. The experiments on the USS Eldridge, with their cocktail of invisibility, time travel, and teleportation, would have provided the backdrop and inspiration for the extensive research that followed at Montauk. The fascination with the mysteries of reality and time was to continue on this isolated military base. The Mystery Center, Montauk Air Force Station. At the heart of the mystery lies Montauk Air Force Station, a military base on the eastern tip of Long Island. Eyewitness accounts suggest that this base was the rendezvous for secret experiments, where the boundary between reality and the unknown was constantly tested. Underground installations, research laboratories, and mysterious antennae turned Montauk into a place of conjecture and speculation. Mind control and psychological warfare, brain experiments. The Montauk Project would have been fertile ground for experiments in mind control and psychological manipulation. Mind control techniques were explored with the aim of achieving absolute domination over human thought. These experiments raised profound moral questions about the ethical limits of scientific research and the potential consequences for individual mental integrity. Time travel, a continuation of the Philadelphia experiment. The legacy of time travel, inherited from the Philadelphia experiment, would have been one of the major thrusts of the Montauk Project. Accounts suggest that time displacement experiments were carried out, plunging researchers into the twists and turns of the time continuum. The implications of these experiments on temporal reality are as fascinating as they are dizzying. Dismantling the project. End of an enigmatic era. In 1983, the Montauk Project came to an end, marking the end of an enigmatic era. Testimonies claim that the activities were dismantled, that the Montauk base was closed, but the precise details remain shrouded in mystery. Some argue that the project continued in other forms, hidden in the twists and turns of government secrecy. Interrogations and controversies, the quest for truth. The Montauk Project remains a subject of questioning and controversy. While some consider the whole story an elaborate fiction, others believe that hidden truths persist behind the veil of secrecy. Testimonies, documents, and speculations continue to perpetuate the mystery, prompting the never-ending quest for truth in this complex labyrinth of secret experiments and paranormal phenomena. This chapter extends the investigation of the Montauk Project, delving even deeper into the twists and turns of the enigma. It questions the boundary between historical reality and contemporary myth, highlighting how this singular story continues to captivate minds, stimulating human curiosity about the unexplored and the supernatural. 1945, the B-8 experiment, Urine Project. Ambiguities of the Urine Project. The Urine Project, or Uranium Project, carried out by the Nazi state during the Second World War, has been the subject of much soul-searching among historians and physicists for over 70 years. While German physicists were at the forefront of global nuclear physics, their failure to provide Hitler with the atomic bomb remains a fascinating enigma. American and British historians were the first to tackle the history of the Urine Project, exploring the role of the Uranverein, the Uranium Club, led by Werner Heisenberg. This group of 100 top researchers was tasked with exploring the utility of atomic nuclei energy. However, the Urine Project scientific approach took an ethically ambiguous direction, confronting the Allies with the paradoxical task of developing the atomic bomb to catch up with their former German teachers, colleagues, and fellow students. Historical debates on the supposed failure of the German project diverge, offering varying interpretations. Mark Walker argues that the wartime economic limitations of the Third Reich led to the failure of the German atomic bomb. On the other hand, Other historians, such as Thomas Powers and Paul Rose, present opposing conclusions on Heisenberg's role, the former seeing him as a hero of the resistance and the latter as a feckless Nazi. However, a new perspective emerges with the 2005 book by German historian Rainer Karlsch. Karlsch offers a more precise description of the Uranverein scientific activities, but surprises by suggesting that, at the end of the war, the German Army's Central Office for Weapons Production had developed and tested fusion bombs as tactical weapons. Despite these debates, a fundamental question persists. Why did German physicists fail to develop the atomic bomb, even though they were at the forefront of global nuclear research? Part of the answer may lie in a lack of understanding of certain fundamental principles. Analysis of the Uranverein's knowledge reveals crucial gaps. German researchers were unaware of the existence of element 94, plutonium, until 1946 and lacked the ability to calculate the critical mass needed to produce a bomb. Moreover, their focus on slow neutron reactors hampered understanding of the explosive chain reactions required for an atomic bomb. The chapter also highlights Uranverein's misunderstanding of the operating principle of a nuclear bomb. Internal reports and communications indicate that researchers did not have a clear vision of the conditions required, sometimes confusing the characteristics of a bomb with those of a nuclear reactor. The secret eavesdropping at Farm Hall in the summer of 1945, where German physicists were confined by the Allies, further underlines their ignorance. Reactions to the announcement of the Hiroshima bomb reveal that some were relieved not to have succeeded in building the bomb, while others were disappointed that German nuclear physics was lagging behind. In conclusion, although the Uranverein was at the forefront of nuclear research, its failure to develop the atomic bomb can be explained by conceptual shortcomings and a limited understanding of the fundamental principles of the nuclear bomb. Internal rivalries, economic constraints, and questionable scientific choices all contributed to making the task impossible, shedding new light on one of the darkest episodes in German history. 1945, the shadows of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The year 1945 marked a dark chapter in world history, marked by events that left an indelible imprint on the collective consciousness: the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This chapter explores in depth the complex nuances of these tragedies that shaped the destiny of these Japanese cities, revealing the human, ethical, and political consequences that emerged from these fateful moments. The atomic weapons race, prologue to the drama. The discovery of the properties of nuclear fission during the Second World War triggered a frantic race between the Allies and the Axis to develop atomic weapons. The Manhattan Project, led by the United States, resulted in the creation of the first atomic bomb, symbolizing a technological breakthrough of monumental consequences. Hiroshima, triggering the apocalypse. On August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay bomber dropped Little Boy on Hiroshima, causing an explosion of unprecedented violence. The city was instantly transformed into a landscape of horror, with thousands of lives lost and unimaginable devastation. Hiroshima becomes the point of impact of the destructive power of nuclear weapons. Nagasaki, shadow of destruction. 3 days later, on August 9, 1945, a second atomic bomb, Fat Man, was dropped on Nagasaki. Although less powerful than the Hiroshima bomb, it nevertheless caused considerable damage. Nagasaki, already stricken by the war, was once again plunged into nuclear horror. Both cities become living scars, bearing the burden of atomic experimentation. Humanitarian consequences. Hell on Earth. The survivors, the Hibakusha, face devastating consequences. Radiation causes serious illnesses, cancers, and genetic mutations. The psychological after effects mark individuals and even future generations, testifying to persistent suffering beyond the immediate days following the explosions. The end of war and the beginning of the nuclear age. Japan's surrender on August 15, 1945 marked the end of the Second World War. The atomic bombings, though controversial, were seen by some as hastening the end of the conflict. However, they also ushered in the nuclear age, raising ethical, political, and humanitarian concerns that continue to influence global diplomacy. The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, an ongoing reflection. The chapter concludes with an invitation to deep introspection on the legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These events triggered ethical debates on the use of nuclear weapons, raising questions about the responsibility of the actors involved and the path humanity has taken into the nuclear age. The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki remains a poignant reminder of the human costs of war and of the constant need to seek peaceful solutions to global conflicts.